Hello, and welcome back to day 3 of my Horrotober readings. Something special for you again today, although they're all special really, but today is extra special because it's one of my own favourite writers and somebody that actually doesn't do an awful lot of reading, so this is a special treat for you. This person is someone who not only do I consider them one of my favourite writers and I will read anything that they produce, it's also someone that I consider a mentor, someone that's given me some really good advice over the last year about some of my own bits of writing, and someone who I consider a friend because he's just so awesome and lovely. So today I present to you Hunter Shea doing a short reading from Misfits. So when you finish listening to this awesome bit of reading, which he doesn't do very often, make sure that you go and buy all the books and then leave him some lovely reviews because we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey Hellions, Uncle Hunter here. How are you? Happy Horrotober. I'm going to do something for Janine that I don't do for anybody else, not even myself. I'm going to read from one of my books. And I hope you don't hate me for it. I hope you still buy the book despite it. I'm kidding. So the book I'm going to read is my latest. I'm not going to read the whole book. It's Misfits, which is currently out, written by a misfit, about misfits, for misfits. So I hope you enjoy. This is part of chapter 7. It centers around these 6 teenagers, and a terrible crime has happened to one of their own, and they are going to take matters into their own hand at one point in the story. But at this point, there's a few of them driving in this car to a very bad place. Okay, here we go. Chapter 7, Misfits. Chuck's knuckles were white little mushroom caps. He hadn't said a word, just kept driving, not even bothering to look in the rearview mirror. She touched his arm and he looked at her, some of the anger and trepidation melting from his gaze. When she gave his arm a squeeze, she hoped it wordlessly conveyed, "We're doing the right thing." It didn't look if he was getting the message. His eyes swiveled back to the road, his jaw flexing. He didn't believe in the melonheads, and she couldn't blame him. She didn't either, at least until last year. "Go up there," Mick said. "I know where to go," Chuck replied sharply. The bent sign for Wainscott Road loomed ahead of them. Holes had been poked out of the metal by people taking pot shots with their rifles during hunting season. It was as far as they would dare travel on Dracula Drive, taking their frustrations out on the puny sign. It was funny how all the adults in Millbury laughed at the Melonheads legend, yet none of them dared go into those woods to hunt. The old shocks creaked and groaned as the skylark took to the road left to rot and ruin. Each shimmy and shake birthed a fresh hell of pain in Marnie's abdomen. She bit back her tears, telling herself to keep it together. The pain was a necessary thing now. Just a little bit more suffering until things could be set right. For once, Chuck was wrong and Mick was right. Her grandfather was the only one she knew who took the Melonheads seriously. At the time, he was, as her mother would say, starting to slip. Marnie was 9 and had no idea what that meant. He walked just fine, but he did forget a lot of things, like where he'd put his glasses or even her name, calling her Maggie, which was her aunt's name. She once watched him pour a glass of juice, start to walk out to the porch, stop and put the glass in the oven. Seconds later, he noticed her standing by the pantry and said he sure was thirsty. Slipping wasn't his problem. Thinking was his real issue, and as far as Marnie was concerned. During hunting season that year, there had been a lot of fighting between Marnie's mother and grandfather. He wanted to pop a son of a buck, but she'd hidden his guns. It was a standoff that lasted for weeks. When there was a lull in the fighting, Marnie asked her grandfather why no one ever hunted in the woods along Dracula Drive. Were they afraid of the Melonheads? With his wiry, white hair and pale blue eyes getting paler by the day, he pulled her onto his lap and said, "Nah, ain't nobody scared of them Melonheads when they got a gun on 'em. The Melonheads may be dumb, but they ain't stupid. They know what a gun can do. It's a good thing they don't have any of their own, though." "So how come nobody goes there?" He looked around to make sure her mother wasn't around to overhear him. She knew he was going to share a secret with her. There were no greater secrets than the one shared between Marnie and her grandpa. "I'll tell you. There's no sense hunting there because there's no deer." "Where did they all go?" "In the bellies of them Melonheads. They gotta eat too, and they don't have a shopple to bring their list and coupons." "If they don't have guns, how do they kill the deer?" He hugged her and she rested her head against his chest. He smelled like Old Spice and root beer. He always had those root beer barrel candies in his mouth. They're expert hunters who don't need a gun, and that's why I don't ever want you to go out there, even if your friends try to bully you to do something stupid. You got that? Got it. There's an old man out there who watches out for them. You stay away from him too. He's not right in the head. What kind of a person would help those freaks? You ever hear somebody say they want to go see a fella named Fetterman? You run the other way. I will. Promise? Promise. She was going to ask him more about this Fetterman, the guardian of the freaks, when he suddenly got up and went into the living room. She heard him ask her mom, "Where's that little Marnie?" He died the next year. Marnie stayed true to her word for the next 6 years. Mick hadn't bullied her into going down Dracula Drive. He said the guy he bought weed from actually lived out there, and she was curious. As far as she knew, no one lived in those woods. Word had it that even Fennerman, if there ever was a Fennerman, was long gone. So she went with him, and everything changed in the matter of hours. Everything. The thump of a lock being undone made her whip around to look at the back seat. Dunwoody was trying to open the car door. Mick pounced on him. The door flew open. Chuck yelled, "What the hell's going on back there?" He hit the brakes just as Mick slammed the door. It thumped against the top of Dunwoody's head. The man howled in pain. "That's what you get for trying to escape," Mick said, breathing heavily. He straddled Dunwoody, his fists at his sides, waiting for him to make another attempt to get out. And that's the end of this part of the story. I hope you enjoyed. Happy Horrotober.